Hey, buddy.
Sean,
Hey, Fergus. How you going?
not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Whereabouts are you? Sydney?
Sydney, yeah. In Sydney.
How are things in
So it's all
Sydney?
over here. Yeah, it's just everything's back to normal. Sure, there's a game. Rugby League was on last night, State of Origin. 90,000 people at the game, so everything's all good.
Wow, wow,
Yeah, I know.
that's a good crowd.
Yeah, sure, I'm in the fitness injury, so it was only a minor blip, but everything's back to normal now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Where are you from originally, Sean? Can you hear me?
For a second, hold on. I think it's just frozen.
Can you hear me okay?
With the seniors.
We try and log in again. I can't hear you.
Sorry, buddy. Just get on the other Wi-Fi.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, that's
Are we
me.
good
That's
now?
me. Yeah, all good, all good. Yeah, I heard you worked under the Dubs for a bit, Jim Gavin.
Yeah, I was lucky to work with Jim and the Dublin team. It's a few years ago now, but yeah.
Yeah, I would have played. So the year before I came out, I would have won All Ireland with Jim 21s. Then I came out to Australia straight away.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Where's home?
Dublin. So same
No,
kind
whereabouts?
of Navan Road. So we played with like Bernard Brogan, Alan Brogan, all those boys, all those superstars. So no, I think we have a mutual friend over here, Graham Morris. You know Graham?
Yes, I know Graham. I think we chatted online a few times, but I don't really know him. Like me, I wouldn't know him close.
Yeah, I would have worked with him over here with a bit, just in the commercial gyms together, which is.
Oh, excellent.
So
Excellent.
I think ironically he's selling. I told him to get into. He's big in Ireland actually, ironically as well, with all the Gaelic football there. So most of it's markets over. Yeah, he's selling a lot of his programs over there.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
Cool.
Good for him.
So my podcast is just like Gen Pop, health, fat loss. So
sure.
We'll get into what it's normally. I've actually got a lot of Irish people on, ironically now.
Oh yeah.
Owen Lacey, Dr. Fionnuala McHale, had Danny Lennon on, who used podcasts were on.
Who was the second one you mentioned?
Fionnuala McHale, she's a doctor.
Don't know her.
Yeah, she's actually brilliant.
I know Owen.
Yeah, Owen. Yeah, I would have learned with those boys when I was back there as well.
Yeah, Owen and John Connor. And...
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Good for you. Good man.
Most of my market now, well, for the online stuff, is all back in Ireland. I don't know. There's something glamorous about Irish person that moves abroad.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Wow. Good for you.
So that's funny.
Yeah. So do you like it out there?
Yeah. For the industry, I mean, like, it suits us so well getting up early and.
Yeah, it's a great lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah. So I tried to do this back in Ireland a few years ago. I went home to try, like, our club just narrowly missed out on a senior champo. So all the boys were like, "Sure, come home, Sean. You'll help us win it." So I went home for a year. And obviously Dublin Championship's so competitive. So like both years, the teams that beat us by a point, they won the whole All Ireland. But I was impressed with even the club setup, how professional it was. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I know.
And what position did you play?
Cornerback. Yeah.
So you're just a thug then.
Just annoying, just athletic. No way. Yeah, no position at all.
Hey, tell you what, if you can play cornerback, if you're a good cornerback, you're worth your weight in gold. Man, I've seen some great cornerbacks over the years.
I know, man, Marco. Yeah, so it's a lot of sports psychology. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
It's a lot of discipline.
Yeah,
a lot of discipline.
I know.
Yeah.
So Fergus, I'll introduce you before because I know that's always the annoying bit.
Yeah.
We'll get straight
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to episode 36 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. Today we have the honor of being joined by Dr. Fergus Connolly, isn't it?
I got a PhD, yeah.
It's not the traditional like take your blood pressure kind of doctor, which you probably get mistaken for all the time.
Yeah, from time to time. But it was my PhD was in computer-based optimization, so nothing to do with what I ended up working in.
Yeah, so when someone shouts for a doctor on a plane, you're not really running up, are you? Yeah, you go the opposite way.
Well, check and see who it is first. But yeah.
Okay, so obviously, I would have said you worked in human performance and you've had impressive resume. But I always like to start off with just to see what kind of research or topics you have your head in at the moment. Anything interesting in your field?
That's a great question, actually. And to be honest, I've been on so many podcasts and so many interviews, and that's probably one of the best questions to start with. So yeah. credit to you. I've always got a lot of different balls in the air and projects. At the minute, I'm actually working on creating a course for young coaches to share just all of the different things that I've learned to be able to put them into like an apprenticeship model for young coaches. But one of the areas that I just did a workshop on yesterday was basically on creating a system for managing people and managing staff and how to interact with people. Because I think one of the mistakes that we've made in sport is taking a lot of ideas from outside of human performance and trying to apply them into sport. So hopefully that'll be out maybe in January. I'll get you an advanced copy so you can have a look.
Yeah, I'll put the links up. So what is what's kind of your definition of human performance? Because I think a lot of the time it gets thrown around and a lot of fancy words, but I don't think it means much when people talk about it. So what's your definition?
Well, for me, it's changed over the years, Sean, because originally I was like you. I started out playing cornerback in a small field in Scottstown and Monaghan, way up on the border. And that was where, mind you, there were a lot of dangerous cornerbacks back then. But for me, originally it was about, playing sport, being a good footballer. But as I've gone through my career and experiences, really it comes down to helping people live the most successful life that they want to perform at that. And that obviously then brings the question back around to the person, like what do they want to, what's their definition of success? And it's about being healthy enough to be able to live that life, and healthy enough to achieve the things that they want to. And I mean that physically and mentally healthy enough to do that, because sometimes we just neglect the psychological side as well.
Yeah, and I think always funny when I used to play football, I was never probably the most skilled, but I was always like looking for the edge. So I'd always be studying psychology books, the golf psycho, whatever. Dr. Bob Bertella, I used to read all that, men's health, whatever, anything I got my hands on, because I knew, right, these guys are better at kicking, but I need to have the edge, nutrition, training. So and it's kind of learn. I don't know about yourself, but later on in life, it serves you well, that discipline and that routine and stuff.
Yeah, well, you just put your finger on it there. I think that a lot of so people look at a lot of very successful players maybe who don't become successful coaches, or look at like some Mourinho or Ferguson or other successful coaches who weren't great players. And I think what they miss is the fact that hunger to learn more, to study more, to read more was developed at that stage when they weren't the best. And that just kept going. And I think, I know it's certainly true for me. That was something that drove me to keep trying to find an edge, try to learn about different areas. And then over the last 7 years, really, it's been about how do you pull all of that together to help somebody, like holistically, to help the person as a whole, not just, in one area alone.
And when you're obviously, you don't just deal with sports teams, you're dealing with individuals as well. And when we can say sports athletes and even corporate athletes, you can group everyone into the same context. So how are you kind of dealing with, well, let's say the corporate athlete or the parent athlete? Because I heard the analogy before when in sports, the higher up you get, the better your nutrition gets, the better your training gets, your psychology. But when we look in the corporate field, the higher up you go, the worse all that goes, ironically, and you're making the most higher powered decisions. So how are you looking holistically with, say, a corporate athlete?
Well, so what's interesting is that in the sports field, the higher up you go, sometimes the nutrition and the care is actually not much better, to be honest, than you would get at let's say at a local level, at a civilian level. Let's use that term. But because that athlete has been training so hard and has a genetic advantage, it doesn't make as big a difference in the short term. Now, long term in their career, it definitely does. But on the corporate side as well, the reason you got to the top on the corporate side is because of your, what I call the tactical and technical knowledge of the business. So, what you know about your job and how well you can interact with people. But you're exactly right then, the nutrition, health, lifestyle, that has been sacrificed to make it to that higher level. And so that's the challenge on the corporate side or on the civilian side, is finding that balance. And what you find as well is that many people in the corporate side, they'll reach a point where it becomes critical. That is the limiting factor. Like, their health is what's holding them back. And the challenge that you have very often with those high performers in the corporate space is getting them to recognize that there's a limit to how much of their business knowledge, there's a limit to that. And actually what's holding them back is their ability to execute and perform at that highest level. And that's where health, wellness, sleep, lifestyle, all those things that's actually the most important thing for them to focus on.
So obviously when you're talking about it, you're probably not being like the typical coach where it's like, you need to get fit because the doctor said so. Are you relaying those values of work and career, and you're relaying that in a way where how fitness will help you long term?
Yeah, and a lot of it is as well, it's just like anybody, they need to recognize that themselves, because it comes up, there's only so much you can do. But if somebody wants to improve and they're prepared to listen, and you can communicate that to them, then you've got, somebody who's on board. And all you need is that window to explain to them how health and wellness lifestyle is going to make a difference to what's important to them. But the very first thing is figuring out what truly motivates people, because you have to be able to press that button. So for some people, it might be, it might not even be business. It might be, they've just their kids are just starting to grow up. They realize that they actually don't even have the basic cardiovascular fitness to play with their kids. I'll never forget reading, actually, it was Dave Tate, who's the elite FTS and who had worked at, or who had trained at Westside. He wrote an article one time about how he had wanted to get in shape or get healthier because he was on vacation with his son, and his young son got up and ran down towards the lake, and he was so out of shape, he couldn't, I think he'd injured his shoulder. He couldn't get up and get down to his son quickly enough. Now, his son didn't go into the water, but it suddenly hit him. He wasn't even in, a proper healthy position to be able to, protect his young son. And that was the spur. And for everybody, they have different reasons why they want to do it. Sometimes it takes a moment like that, but you would hope that it wouldn't, that people would start to realize, okay, well, I need to look after myself, my health, to be able to live, again, the most successful life that I want to.
Yeah, we had a guy, Dr. Gary Mendoza, on a few episodes ago, and he's talking about motivational interviewing. So basically the same thing as when they actually used psychometric testing to see that person's readiness for change. And then they link that with like an 85% success rate when it comes to weight loss. And someone taught me, a coach in Ireland, Damien Marr, he said, you need, like you said, you need that thing to press when things get hard, and poke them with the stick a little bit more. And I think, is that a mistake that people make when they're starting out, let's say, whatever it is, to get fit, that they might have looked at that reason?
Yeah, absolutely. And look at Damien's Jamie's one of the smartest guys, one of the smartest guys out there. He's absolutely right. You need to know where to press that stick and to know what that button is. And if you can find that and you can press that button, then you've got somebody who's on board. And some of it comes with, look at experience. Sometimes you can use techniques like that, like motivational interviewing, psychometric testing, but you get good at identifying what's important to people, and also recognizing as well as a transition. So sometimes what starts out initially as the issue takes a little bit of time to develop, but yeah, it's incredibly important.
What are some of the mistakes you see with, we can say, behavior change? Because whether it's sports or corporate athletes, everyone is trying to change or modify some kind of behavior in that field.
Oh man, I've seen so many mistakes. I've made so many mistakes. I think I think the single most common mistake is believing that everybody's like you, and the reason that they want to do it is the same reason that you do. And I actually have this with coaches that I mentor, just trying to tone it back with them, that they think that, you know, that their clients has the same motivation that they do, or that, and they get frustrated. Why can't they understand? Why can't they understand what I'm trying to tell them? And I think the easiest way to fix that is to, consider, put yourself on the other side of the table. And I think that's the simplest way to start to look at it, or to begin to address that.
Yeah, I during COVID we did a few just MMA lessons with a fighter, and he obviously great at fighting, but he would get very frustrated because obviously he didn't have the tools to portray what he was trying to say, and he could get it. He's like, why can't these guys get what I'm talking about? And we see all the time in fitness as well. Coaches in the staff room be like, oh, my clients they're just not motivated enough. And it's like, it's just your lack of ability to actually help that person change.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is, like, if you're coming from a sporting environment yourself, you have to recognize that people don't live in that environment, and it's easier for people who work in sport, live in sport, and in that's your world. But people are coming in and they're only dipping into it for a few hours each day, and you have to understand where they're coming from, understand the challenges. And sometimes you see people, and then they come up with ridiculous solutions, that are not going to work in the real world. And that's something that I guess I don't know, I've always really been aware of, the fact that whatever solution you propose, it has to work in the real world. And when I mean the real world, I mean in your client's world. And that's the same for like a professional athlete, or like I would come up with, I remember even working with Premiership players, flying over to work with them even in Ireland 15 years ago, and you're trying to help them. But it's only when you get there and you realize the challenges that they have, the things, like some guys didn't even know how to go around a supermarket and shop. Like, small things like that. Other guys, it would take them 3 hours to do it. Like, it's just the small things. But until you put yourself in their shoes, you're not going to get it. You're not going to understand.
Yeah, we see it all the time with nutrition training, and you're telling people what to eat, and you don't even know if that person can boil an egg, like, for all you know.
Yeah, and even financially, like, it's one thing that some people can't afford some of the things, so you got to keep that in mind. And then other people almost have too much money and they choose to take the easier option. Like a few years ago, but I remember it was with the University of Michigan. We took some of the players to a cooking lesson. Now, first of all, some of the guys just didn't want to be there, but towards the end, one of the ladies said, "Oh, I want to show you guys how to make just one or two simple snacks. And show you how to, make scrambled eggs on toast. So late in the evening, you can do this." And when she took the guys around to show them how to actually scramble an egg, she opened up a carton, took an egg out, cracked it, and one of the guys could not understand that this is what an egg was. To him, an egg came in a carton, eggs came in a carton already pre-mixed. He couldn't comprehend that this was an egg. Like, it was just alien to him. You take it out and you can buy them like that? And like, so that's what you got to put yourself in people's shoes and understand where they're coming from.
And what are some of the skills you develop, whether in sports or over the last few years, that you help individuals? So if might use the example of a corporate athlete, how are you getting those skills over to help those people?
I think one of the things I've spent, it's funny because, like, for example, I remember meeting Damien, it was 15, 20 years ago. And at that stage, I think, I know I was, I'm pretty sure he was as well. We're really focused on understanding the detail and the science and everything behind what we were doing. And I'm sure, I went down so many rabbit holes myself into a lot of detail. But in the last few years, for me, the greatest benefit has been in finding ways to simplify, create models that people can understand. So creating simple formulas that make sense and that are scientifically sound, but can be presented in a really easy way to the client. And you can build complexity on top of that. But it took me a while to realize that people don't care really what you know. They only care about what they can understand. And if you can't explain it in a simple way to them, it doesn't matter. So for me, a lot of it has been coming up with really simple ways to explain, whether it's the nervous system. Like, for example, I'll always explain the nervous system to people, or generally will explain the nervous system to people as, think of it like the electrical system in your car. If it's not working and it can't fire properly, your car, or even the lights in your house, it's not going to work. And then think of the hydration and blood flow. Think of that like the plumbing in your house, or the gas in your tank, the petrol in your tank. And then your muscle is your suspension system, and you know what I mean? Just three simple ways: the electrical system, the plumbing, and the suspension. And just simplify it. And you can build layers of complexity on top of that if you choose the right model. Keep it simple.
Yeah, and I think that's just a bit of insecurity when you're a new trainer or coach, whatever it is. You're just trying to show people how much you know. Remember,
Yes.
John Connor even says a lot of the time, trainers that can't simplify it, like, you'll ask them the time and they're telling you how a fucking watch works. Like, that wasn't
That's
a
right.
question.
No, that was my, that's, I've used that quote so many times from from Sicario. Asking someone, not you're asking me how a watch works, for now just watch the time. And it's so true. Like, I think a lot of that comes from people fail to recognize what the goal is, and being clear about what the goal is. Like, the goal is to get a result, not to show how smart you are.
So you mentioned a lot of time, obviously, problem solving, and that's maybe some of the skills you probably developed from. How do you put that into action when talking to someone? Obviously, you're looking at, is it kind of the low hanging fruit with people when you're working with biggest roadblocks? How are you identifying what those things are?
So I hate that term, low hanging fruit, because it's almost like, that's you're cheating.
Easy.
To me, it's and it's not like that at all. It's about two things. It's about effectiveness and efficiency. You choose what is the most effective route to get there, and then you improve the efficiency of it. So you figure out what's the best thing that works, and then you take that and you go, okay, how can I present that in the most efficient way, so that we don't waste time, and so we don't waste resources. But you always start with quality, start with the effectiveness, like what's the highest, and really it comes down to bang for buck. It's a trade-off, and that's the most critical thing. Starting out is think in those terms, and you're right. Like, so much of it comes down to problem solving, and I think you learn problem solving by two things: being stubborn, like not quitting, and by making a lot of mistakes. Like, if you have to make mistakes, and lots of little mistakes, to get better, and then you can never quit. Because if you don't make mistakes, you're not trying, and so you're not going to go anywhere. And if you just quit after you fail once or twice, you're definitely going nowhere. So it's that constant balance. You've got to keep trying things and watch for the results. Watch how it impacts. Can I use that again? Did that work well? Get feedback. I know when I was younger, I used to annoy some people looking for feedback, from coaches or from players. Even still today, actually, it was only recently, was it it's about a year ago, is working for a company. We're doing a lot of communication teaching, so teaching executives about communication techniques. And I remember one of the people said, "Would you stop asking me? Do I understand that? I've got it." But I kept going. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Because I wanted feedback. I wanted to know, and they were getting annoyed with me again. You just got to keep learning.
Yeah, obviously, you're talking about learning from failure, and with fat loss, that's like relapse is a part of like recovery or actually getting to your final destination. And I know I've heard you talk about before about probably the schooling system where we just have a negative association with failure. Like if you failed, that's a bad thing. Like you shouldn't be doing that. How do you help people like reframe the way they think about failure or learning from their mistakes?
I think a lot of it comes. I don't want to get on the bandwagon of blaming social media. Like, I mean, because social media is here to stay, but I think a lot of it's about people portraying their perfect self. And like, growing up years ago, as old as I am, but when you're growing up years ago, you knew what everybody was doing. You knew everybody's business. It's the nature of Ireland. So nobody was perfect, which was a good thing. But now, when everything's remote and everybody's just throwing up perfect photographs or whatever, everybody has this impression of everything's perfect. And I think that's caused a shift where people don't want to make mistakes. And I think that's a challenge, I think, for young people growing up. But a lot of it is just about getting over yourself, make mistakes, make them fast, learn from them fast. It's and be stubborn. Like, you have to be a little bit stubborn. You just, I think that's a good cornerback quality. Just never quit.
I think it's an Irish quality in general, isn't it? Stubbornness.
It is an Irish quality. It is. Absolutely. Yeah. Just, there's a thin line between being tough, being resilient, and just being stubborn. But I think if you have any doubts or worries about yourself being tough, well, then just be stubborn, just hang in there.
And obviously you have worked with like some of the most successful people out in sports and military, and obviously they're still making mistakes, and then people just slipping up and eating the wrong food or getting too hard on themselves. Is there a difference between how maybe the high achievers reframe failure, or do some people react badly to it, some react good? Do you see differences?
That's a great question. I think there's a few things. I think what you find is so at the highest level, what's interesting is that at the elite end, you kind of find two groups of people. You find those who are really special in what they do and gifted, and they'll survive. And then you find this other group who are like truly elite, and they're not afraid of failure, and they look for failure in certain things. Now, they're not always going to show it to everybody, but they are. It's almost like they look for opportunities to struggle in safe places. So it might be like an example of, it might be doing a workout or doing an exercise that they know they're going to be embarrassingly bad at, but when they're around people that they trust, they'll go and they'll struggle and they'll suffer and they'll laugh about it with everybody, and then they'll but you don't see that. And then you get some others who are too scared to do that, and who they struggle the most. And so I think the ones that are really successful are the ones who can have a dark sense of humor. They know life's tough. They're going to make a mistake, but screw it up, and they get right back on the horse again. And I think that's the most important quality to be successful, is to know that you're going to fail, but not get hung up on it, and just get back and go again. And they have a clear focus about what they want to do, and they know that they're human. And I think what I'm trying to say is that I think it's important that you fail in lots of that you continue to fail, because if you stop failing and you become so protective of yourself, when something does happen, you just lose it. Like, you completely binge out, and you never see them again. So for clients who are coming in and you're working with them, I think it's important to explain to them that you expect them to fail. You expect them to break a diet. You expect them to miss a workout. That's fine. You're going to do it. It's going to happen. but I want to see you here the next day. And we're just going to get right back on the horse. Because particularly when you're coaching someone, you need that trust that they're going to tell you, that that's happened as well. You don't want them lying to you. Like, the scales aren't going to lie, calipers aren't going to lie, but you want them to be able to, laugh about it, joke about it, and let's get back on the horse.
Because even when I look at, say, the people I've coached in the past, obviously it's such a cliche, like consistency over perfection, because once they stay in the game long enough, and it's the same with athletes, like when they train, if the athlete can stay in the game and not get injured long enough, they're going to be a better player long term. So it's an interesting different mindset between maybe the elite and then people that come in that are truly of that like black and white mindset. And it comes back to the expectations, doesn't it, when they start?
Yeah, and you can't have you can try and have a black and white mindset, but the world's not like that. The world's chaotic. Stuff's going to happen. You deal with it the best you can, and you keep trying to, make progress. Not, like you said, not perfection. You keep trying to make little bits of progress. Understand that you're going to trip up. Understand there are things, but the most dangerous ones are the absolutists, because they'll stick to a diet for a while, or they'll stick to a habit for a while with extreme cost, and then they crack and it's over. Like, we would have a lot of guys. I remember in the NFL, there's one guy even still playing who's just been let go by a team. Like, just would go on these crazy diets to lose weight and would balloon then out over the off season. You'd be scared to see what he'd come in at, and you're texting him, what's your body weight? What are you coming back in at? And he's lying to you, and he comes back in like 10 pounds heavier than he said, and it's just,
it's interesting. It's kind of like a, I don't know, protective coping mechanism between they're not looking for failure, like you said. They don't want that at all. And once they slip up a little bit, they're like, nah, let's see how I can't handle it.
Yeah, and there are deeper issues that generally at play with a lot of guys like that. So you're trying to, you really want to help them. And I made lots of mistakes, like not being able to understand why, and particularly when there's huge amounts of money on the table as well. Like, your guys losing thousands of dollars, a week because of weigh-ins and stuff like that. But in just going, well, they're stupid. You can't. They're not. There's something there that you need to figure out, and you need to help them figure out. But that takes time, it takes experience, and we're very quick to jump to conclusions. But if you were to put yourself in their situation, or they were to look at you in another field, you're probably just like them, but it just doesn't happen to be body weight.
I know it's hard not to stereotype. Obviously, it's probably a human evolutionary mechanism, but even when it comes to like fat loss, you might see someone overweight and go, oh, obviously that person's lazy, or whatever stereotypes you have. Yep. But little do you know, that person could have suffered whatever child abuse when they're young, and they're just using food now as a coping mechanism. Where you see the drunk in the corner, you obviously don't know what they've been through.
Yeah, and as well as that, there's so many different reasons, and the other thing too is, they could have every other aspect of their life in order, and you don't, but you're going to judge them based on appearance or whatever it might be. So, it just got to be careful jumping to conclusions as well with people. And so I think helping people and having a certain amount of empathy. You have to be careful not to have too much sympathy, but you have to have empathy. And the difference is being able to understand where someone is, and sympathy sometimes can be dangerous, because now you're permitting that behavior. So it's having empathy, understanding why someone feels like that, understanding why someone's there, and being able to help bring them on that journey.
Yeah, it's so true. Even what you said about they might have every other aspect of their life together, and you're just judging them of one thing. Like I'm good at fitness and nutrition, but nobody ever taught me about money or savings. And I even laugh. One of my mates, best mate over here, Irish as well, but he's a QS. He deals with numbers all day, but he's brutal. He can't create a budget for himself if his life's dependent on it.
Yeah, or you might you could be training some guy who's completely out of shape, and you judge him as he comes through the gym door, yet you're up to your eyes in debt, and he's going to be retiring in a few years. Yeah. And you know what I mean? You could be looking for a job from him. So it's just about it's just about keeping yourself in check, keeping your feet on the ground.
I actually have a few clients we're obviously all trained in my field, and then we might go outside and she's taking my shit together with all the same theories and strategies, planning. I'm just good at with trained nutrition. She might be doing it for me with marketing or sales, and we just wear different hats, but everyone's just helping each other. That's why it's nice to take the judgment out of it. It's like, this is just a field you're just not that good at. You might be good at everything else.
Yeah, and like, you mean, there are things that you need help with, and it's like, I was talking to someone about this today. It's surfaces and gaps. There are some things that you need help with, and you hand those off for the time being until you're in a position to be able to tackle them. And then there are other things you just need to slowly get your head around. And it's knowing what things to outsource and knowing what things that you need to invest your time, spend your time in. So, but again, just not jumping to conclusions with clients or with athletes, and taking time to understand them. And the most important thing, I think, is, like, I say this, so the two most important communication skills are, one, listening, like shut up and listen, like really listen to what people are saying, the words they're using. And the second one then is self-talk. Listen not just to the words that people are telling you, but also listen to how you're talking about yourself as well. Like, people, when they come to talk about communication, they think, oh, well, it's about how you present, and that is important. But the first two are listen. Second one then is your own self-talk, how you talk about yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you talk about yourself to others. Those are the two most critical communication skills.
And they must be disappointed. They're probably expecting a Wolf of Wall Street presentation, and you're just telling them just has to have the listening. Oh, my money back here.
Well, it's like, you mean, when you explain to people, it's the value of listening carefully to how people, and it's amazing, even in the first few sentences, people will tell you what they want to hear or what they're looking for from you, and they'll tell you how they think of themselves. And when you understand that, what they're truly looking for and where they are, now you can shape what it is that you're going to present to them in a way that they can accept it. And so if somebody has low self-esteem, or if somebody is, very A-type and has a very high sense of self, well, now you know how to navigate that. And the other thing then is, what are they looking for, or what do they think they're looking for? And then you can help bring that around to what you know that they really want. So one of the other things that learned from a special forces commander, but never say no. Yeah, we can do that, and we'll do it like this, and you basically have told them the opposite, but you don't say no, we're not going to do that. You say, yeah, okay, let's have a look at that, and we'll do some of this. And because if you say no straight away to someone, even just the word no, puts up barriers. Now you're arguing with someone rather than saying, yes, and we can look at that, and we can do this as well.
That's one of why I did this undergraduate in psychology. I said, well, this can apply to so many ways, so we'll go in here and see what happens. And obviously it's the exact same thing, just that emotional intelligence. So on the topic of listening and communication, I heard you talk before about, like, asking someone how are they, but actually fucking listen to them and listen to their answer. So what kind of stuff do you maybe some skills you've kind of learned to see when people are all right and when they aren't all right? Because obviously this are you okay is a good statement, but if you don't know how to perceive the answer, it's not that good.
Yeah, so what I tend to do is ask them about something else first, because I think people generally almost expect that, and you've got a ready-made answer already. But when you catch people off balance, you ask them about the kids, you ask them about their family, you remember something about them, like, you mean, if it's a client or someone coming back, that's when you start to pick up clues about how they really feel. Because people straight away, it's a typical thing, and even back in Ireland, like, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Like, but you ask them something else that they actually have to think about, and you watch how they process that information and how quickly, and then you can slowly come around to, and then how are you doing? And you hear how they talk about other things. You even, even just hearing the energy of their voice, how happy they are, how enthusiastic they are, where they get energy from. If they, like, you can ask, the next time you're talking to a client, you ask them about their wife or their kids or their work. You ask 3 questions, and all 3 will be answered with different levels of energy, and you'll start to see very quickly where the most difficulty. They can answer in a positive sense, but all 3 might give you 3 different types of energy.
Yeah, and obviously these skills translate over to whoever you're dealing with in the corporations, military, sports, wherever.
Friends, yeah,
friends. You've touched on before athlete burnout, and I'll group that the same way with corporate burnout, and I think you could probably agree. What are some of maybe the commonalities you see burn people out, and what kind of interventions do you commonly bring with people?
Oh yeah, it's funny because burnout for me initially I always viewed it almost purely in a physical sense, and then it became somewhat of a phenomenon with young athletes, and then of course, I burned out myself, and it's really a case of being able to understand all of the elements that contribute to someone's life. And you can find people will burn out over what appear to be, again, the simplest things. And it's developing a capacity for managing stress. But a lot of it comes down to your perspective on life, like what's important to you. Because you can have people who, it can be like a straw that'll break the camel's back. They're managing lots of different things, but there's this one small thing that's incredibly important to them. You might not think it is, and that just pushes them completely over the edge. And so it varies from person to person, and it's certainly not just physical. It can be.
It's not something we probably think about when we're watching Monday Night Football, and you're going, well, why is that fella fucking playing shy? Well, it's because he's having arguments with his missus at home or whatever, and it's probably such an overlooked topic, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the joke you used to say to guys is, the definition of stress is when you've got to mortgage a wife and a mistress, and all 3 of them are a month late. Like if you've got all of those stresses, you're going to burn out. Yeah. And it's always the accumulation. It's rarely one single thing. It's the accumulation. What's really interesting as well is the thing that you snap on, the thing that you actually burn out on is generally the one thing that you're best at, because what you've done is you have an incredible ability to do that particular thing, and everything else is subservient or supports that. So they're causing you stress, but you still can do this one particular job exceptionally well. When you struggle at it, now you've missed all of these other signs. And even when I worked at the 49ers, we had a lot of guys who were struggling with lots of different things off the field. And the irony was, for me, we'd done a lot of work putting in place a model to try and help understand why that was happening. And I couldn't even spot it, in myself. And we had 5 things that we looked at with players, subsequently. For a lot of them, it was, in some cases, it was lifestyle. They either weren't sleeping or eating right. And that was something we took for granted. You're talking about multi-million-dollar athletes, but many of them might have poor lifestyle habits, or it could be attachment issues, relationships. It could be maturity, just simply like having life experience. It could be a security thing in terms of their contract or where they're going in the future, like worry about, the contract's up in a few months and they're not sure. Or surprisingly, with many, professional athletes, self-esteem thing. Many of them, this is the one thing they can do. Maybe they're coming to the end of their career, or maybe they feel threatened, or maybe somebody else has, been recruited or drafted or bought, and they feel their self-esteem now they're struggling with it. So it could be any one of those issues, or it could be a combination of them that lead to burnout in some shape or form. And again, with people who are excellent in a physical sense, it's rarely physical issues that cause that burnout.
So what things are you doing to prevent it? Or what's been the most successful you've seen where, I don't know, you're giving surveys, what mechanisms are you judging burnout and how are you looking to prevent that?
Yeah, you can use surveys to give you like a good starting point to see where pain points are, and then a lot of it comes down to conversations and to to coaching, because it depends on the relationship you have with the person. But generally, the best way is communication and sitting down chatting and finding and making that time. Like the surveys can be helpful, but there's a lot of stuff falls between the cracks in a survey, and people can easily lie. You know, you it depends on, again, it depends on relationship. Like, I mean, working with a professional team, nobody wants to tell you that they're struggling because there's contracts on the line. But you may pick up clues that allow you to try and find that person, spend some time quietly and talk in confidence and figure out, oh, okay, so they've got this issue or that issue. Like, I mean, you've got guys who've had like relationship issues and they're really worried about their kids. And something's been bugging them, but it takes a while for that to come forward. It could be small, like, you can have guys that pass surveys all day long, but they might start turning up late for meetings or skipping a coaching meeting or something like that. And they've got a valid excuse, but that there's something else there. You're only going to find that out in a conversation with people. And again, it depends on the person. Some people want to share. Some, it takes a little bit of encouragement for them to share. So it depends on the person.
And that's obviously where all the connection comes up to that point, because like people won't tell you if you haven't built a good relationship up to that point.
Yeah, and it's really interesting with type A personalities. It depends on the person as well. Like, some people want to share. I think you find more and more the younger generation do want to share, because I think many of them just haven't had that opportunity or haven't had relationships where they can. But not all of them. Then you'll find some older generations struggle to share for different reasons. So it depends again on the age, the experience, and the background of who it is that you're dealing with.
So obviously you're asking for a friend, but what do you do with the problem about the mistress?
Oh man, that's a handful, yeah. But again, it comes down to in many serious instances, it comes down to identifying, look, what's important to you, like what is your definition of success, like what is important, and start from there. And it sounds cuddly, but that is actually the most important thing, because when people can prioritize what's really important to them, then the decisions become easier. And like, so for example, when it comes to fat loss, for many people, it's just not the most important thing for them. And it's until they figure that out and find that out. Like, if somebody's motivated and that is important to them, then making change is easy. But if it's not, or they haven't realized how important it is, well, then that's not going to be, you're going to have a tough job. But starting with figuring out, okay, what is important to you? What's your definition of being successful?
And coming back on your computer science, that was your PhD was in, how are you utilizing technology now, or does it take the place of human connection? But how are you maybe putting in a hybrid model to help people, whatever, change behavior or some of the commonalities you see?
Yeah, like, I mean, when I was much younger, I thought everything could be measured technology wise, and I still have these conversations, but I think it's a good platform by which you can gather useful, some interesting data and some useful data. But the best, this is still a people business, and winning as a people business still comes back to people. So you can have that balance. I think the most important thing when it comes to technology is not knowing what it does, but knowing what it doesn't do, and using whatever the technology is, whether it's an Oura ring, a Whoop band, a subjective questionnaire, it doesn't matter, but knowing what it's not telling you and not drawing too many conclusions from it, and filling in then the gray area, because that's where the real value is. It's in the gray. And if you look at the most successful coaches, I don't care what industry it's in, it's those who have developed the best interpersonal skills. Those are the ones that are most effective generally in the long run.
And last question, we've talked obviously up here about Jim Gavin. I think you mentioned he was the best coach you've been involved in team.
Yeah, hands down in any sport or business. Yeah.
And what's the main reason for
that? Jim's a very intelligent coach. He's very, very bright. He understands the balance. I think one of the things is that he understands what he's very good at. He understands what he's not. He's not afraid to delegate. He's not afraid to bring people in. He's a brilliant people manager. And he cares a lot about his players, which maybe at times people miss, I think. But he has a very, very good balance of being, I guess, compassionately ruthless. And he understands that better than anybody else I've been around. Because I don't think people necessarily give him credit for what he did, or maybe don't give him enough credit. I don't to be able to build something consistent. That's unique. It doesn't. So it's a once in a lifetime thing. Fortunate to have been around him. Fortunate to have been asked to help him. But yeah, an incredibly unique leader. A lot of people could learn a lot from him.
Yeah, he dropped me for the All-Ireland final, so I still have a bit of grudge. But no, that's what everyone says. That's what everyone says. He would bring in the best team, and coming from your military background, that's what you're good at, and you replace whatever else needs to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and I think you'd admit this as well. I don't think there's no surprise. He's not. It wouldn't have surprised you that he would make those decisions. He's not. He doesn't promise anything to anybody, and he's not dishonest about anything, which I think is a difficult balance. I think for a lot of coaches, I've been around a lot of coaches who'll lie to you all day long to get what they want. But yeah, Jim's going to pick the best team on the day, and he's not going to apologize for it. And even in his own case, he decided that it was time for him to move on, because he would have felt that maybe, not to speak for him, but I'm sure one of the things that crossed his mind was, am I going to let the team down if I stay on for another year? That would have been one of the things I'm pretty sure that crossed his mind.
No, it was always fair game. If you're playing well, you got on, or otherwise you had a job to do. So when I came on in the final, we won, but I had a job to do, and that it was, again, it's kind of that same military background. This is your role, do that, and for the sake of the team, everyone's going to be good.
Yeah, and then you win, and everybody wins, and I think, and he's good at, he's very, very good at doing that as well. There are a lot of small things that I think he did, and I shouldn't say small; they appear small, but an excellent manager.
And have you adopted the same approach of creating a team around you for people you deal with, or?
Yeah, I've got a lot of people that I lean on, and you try to. For me, it's always a case of trying to find a win-win. It's more enjoyable that way, which I think took me a while to realize. Early on, you're just trying to be, you're trying to learn. But I think for me now, a lot of it's about the journey. It's about sharing. People ask me all the time what motivates me. I just love helping people. Being asked to come and do, and do this podcast and things like that. If I can help someone, and if I can do it, I'll always try and do it, and try and help people, because for me it's rewarding to be able to give back. And so many people have helped me. I've had to call Jim and ask him for advice or ask him for help, but there's been so many other coaches. He's just one example, who have helped me. So why wouldn't I want to help others myself?
Yeah, there's obviously lots of lines, but once you start helping people, that's your business model in itself. That's everything else will take care of itself from there. You don't have to worry about money. Now, Fergus, where can obviously people? Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I think one of the other things I think that there's Mike Boyle, for example, in Boston. There's lots of great people like Dan Path, Mike Boyle, two in particular, who I learn a lot from, and being role models, so to speak. But you watch how they enjoy what they do, and they're still coaching. You know what I mean? I'm not going to put an age on either of them, but like they're still coaching. They've been coaching for decades now, and you want to learn from those people who are doing it and enjoying it, and who are well respected. And I think if you look to those people, you can always learn from them. And that's something that you're always trying to learn from the best who are out there, but also those who have that best model around them.
I think everyone has the same mindset. I went back and interned with Damien for a year because I was like, right, who's the best kind of coach around Ireland? I need to go and learn from him and just sit and watch and then.
Yeah, Damien's really, really smart guy, and like he came over to Arizona. I met him a few years ago, and he's still as keen and as hungry to learn as when I first met him, whatever it is, 20 years ago. And that's great to see. But he enjoys it, that's unique. You see people who are jaded doing different things, but no, he's still the same enthusiasm.
I know. A bit too much. That's the problem sometimes, but it's a blessing, of course.
Yeah.
Fergus, where can people find you? Where's your information? You have a great TED Talk and lots of podcasts you've already done already.
I guess my website, fergusconnolly.com. I guess I'm on Twitter and Instagram or whatever, but yeah, website's probably the easiest.
Yeah, it's a nice little resume when you go on the website. All the teams.
Yeah, just look at. I've been fortunate. Been fortunate to be around some great people, and just enjoy learning so much about people. At the end of the day, it took me a while to realize, all that I've been doing is studying humans.
I know, and that's even why, actually, during lockdown, I went all my business online. So I was dealing with everyone online. But I said, I actually enjoy the face-to-face stuff, and that allows, and most coaches will say that allows you better develop better skills that way when you're face-to-face with people that you can then bring onto online, because the most common roadblocks and stuff come up with everyone. But yeah, your skill set.
The other thing too is when you look at when something's taken away, it gives you an opportunity to see what that value what that was providing value to you. And as a coach, I think a lot of coaches realize how much energy they got from their clients, and probably now when this eases off, going back, they probably have a greater appreciation for the value of being around people and their clients as well.
Yeah, I always say I'm just as fortunate because these people are the most successful in their field, and so they're just brushing off on me all day, whether it's business and stuff I would never even hear about anywhere else. So yeah, it's pretty valid. And you have 2 books as well, Fergus, don't you? They're behind you there.
So I wrote Happiness Handbook was the last one. I wrote Game Changer was the first book, and then 59 Lessons, which was basically a collection of stories and lessons. I was fortunate to learn from so many great people, many of them down in Australia as well. There's a guy called Greg Chappell, and I tell this story all the time. I was asked to come down to Cricket Australia to give a talk, and this guy in the front row, and he's asking me these questions. He's an older gentleman. I didn't know who he was, and you've got all of, and I know nothing about. You would know I know nothing about cricket, but I'm talking about high performance, and this guy's asking questions. And when I was leaving, he had given me a book called First Tests, which is about cricket. The great cricket stars, and where they had learned, and basically it was about how they'd learned on streets. And as I was leaving, I asked the guy who was driving me to the airport, listen, that old guy who's sitting in the front, he gave me a book. I want to send him a gift as a thank you. What's the address of the building? What's the guy's name, and what's the address of the building? Okay, his name is Greg Chappell. Okay, so I wrote it down. And I said, and we're driving out of the building, and I said, what's the address? And he pointed out through the window, and I looked up, and it was the sign. and it was Greg Chappell Street. Greg Chappell was one of the greatest Australian cricketers ever, and that's who had been so humble, not just to give me a gift, but to ask questions of some guy who knew nothing about cricket. So it's just a collection of those kinds of stories and things I've learned from being fortunate to learn from some great people.
Yeah, brilliant. And you showed the same kind of kindness to jump on this podcast. I really appreciate you. You're straight on. So,
no, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
All right, Fergus. Great chat. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it,
Thank you
buddy.
very
I'll
much,
talk to you
Sean.
soon, Fergus.
Speak soon.